All right, in breaking news just coming in, the Supreme Court of India has said that its November 20th order on the Aravallis will not be implemented until next date of hearing, effectively putting the directions on hold for now. Now, the Apex Court will take up the matter for further hearing on 21st of January. What we know is a bench led by Chief Justice of India, Suryakant, has also ordered the formation of a new expert committee to examine issues that require to be examined in terms of definition of the Aravallis, which is, of course, the whole issue where it started. The court has also issued notice to the centre and 4 Aravalli states, that is Rajasthan, Gujarat, Delhi and Haryana, seeking their response to its suo motu case on the issue. What we know right now is that the Supreme Court has now said that its November 20th order on the Aravallis will not be implemented until the next date of hearing. Well, for more details, our correspondent Dhamjot Kaur is now joining us on the phone line. Dhamjot, if you can just give us a detail on what this means for the Aravallis and what is the latest that you can tell us.
Well, again, Jyotsna, with respect to this case, we've seen in the past few weeks how the entire trajectory of protests and opposition to this particular definition has unfolded. Now, the original judgment that the Supreme Court had passed in November, which limited the definition of Aravallis to it being over a certain height limit, that concerned a lot of environmentalists and activists with respect to opening up India's oldest range to further commercial and mining activities. And this is at a time when, for the past few years, the entire range that spans 3 states and the National Capital Region has already been witnessing an increase in the number of encroachments and settlements. So this order, in effect, compounded an existing problem, which is why we saw such an outcry against it in the past few days. Taking that into consideration and the pleas that were filed in court, the Supreme Court has now put its own order in abeyance, which means that it will take every criticism, every concern into consideration before its order can or will be implemented. Having said that, it remains to be seen again whether the Supreme Court is satisfied with the opposition and the criticism that is being put forth by several stakeholders involved in this entire process, including the environmentalists, or if it sticks to its original judgment and the original legal definition that it granted last month of the Aravalli range. So that is still a process that is ongoing. But what has happened right now, its last order will not be implemented. So in effect, that's a small win for the environmentalists and the critics and the activists in this particular case. Now, all of this is happening in the backdrop of the government also trying to assure everyone that this order, in effect, does not really open up the range to increased mining activity, because that was the key concern here. We heard last week from the Environment Minister who said that it's 0.19% of the entire range that has mining activity going on, and no new mining projects will be approved, without a lot of checks and balances put in place. But again, the 0.19% of the Aravalli range that is already open to mining, the process is also hundreds and thousands of hectares already. So in effect, what all of this really means, how much implementation really occurs on the ground level, and whether or not at the end of the day the Supreme Court takes serious cognizance of what the critics are saying and what the environmentalists are saying, and will it change its order in effect after that in the coming days, that is something that we will be looking out for, Jyotsna.
Absolutely. And tell us about the relevance of this, because we know that this is coming in the backdrop of the air pollution that has persisted, not just in Delhi, but now it's even reaching other parts of India. And considering the fact that now this has been stayed, how big of a win is it for the environmentalists and, I should say, the civilians?
Well, absolutely. In fact, for the past few weeks, we've been seeing so many protests and rallies unfold. Now, we saw protests happening in Delhi itself. We saw protests happening in the state of Rajasthan too, where hundreds and thousands of people had come out on the streets demanding a reversal of the Supreme Court's order. Again, following all of that, the government did say that they're going to try and ensure and keep with the vision of protecting the Aravalli range. But that is the sticking point between this entire tri-cornered conversation that's happening right now. The government versus the environmentalists, and in the middle of it all is a Supreme Court judgment. So this abeyance is clearly a big win for the environmentalists and for the activists, and also for people living around those areas with respect to ensuring that their concern and their voice is heard, and what kind of issues that they will be raising with respect to limiting the definition of what constitutes an Aravalli range.
I hear that.
Because it's important to remember here, Jyotsna, the range surrounding the Delhi NCR region is very low-lying. You don't see a lot of hills and mountains, but a lot of this area in Delhi constitutes the Aravalli.
Right, of course, so and that is the reason why it's exactly that, because of course that's how the whole issue started with not just this, but even pollution, environmental. There's so many concerns that surrounds this issue, and of course we can only hope for a positive outcome of this whole stay, and of course we'll look for how the committee set up is going to evaluate all of this. Thank you so much for joining us and giving all the latest.